Hi everyone, my name is Pragna Nidumolu, and I am the founder of EcoTeens, an initiative that helps raise awareness of climate change and how teens can come together across the globe to do their part in making this world a greener place for them and future generations to live in. As a part of EcoTeens, we launched a podcast called The Green Stories to bring diverse perspectives on sustainability and what we all can do as global citizens to address climate change. Today we have a very special guest on this episode, Phil. He is an environmental advocate and a 2-year AmeriCorps alumnus working in the climate communications field. He possesses extensive experience in fundraising, stakeholder engagement, grants management, marketing, and policy analysis. He is well versed in a broad range of environmental, humanitarian, and corporate sustainability issues, with a special focus on climate policy, renewable energy, and a subnational climate governance. Hi, Paul. It's great to have you.
Hi, Pragna. Glad to be here.
So, jumping right into the questions. As an environmental advocate and senior communications coordinator for North America at Climate Group, could you share with us what initially sparked your interest in climate communications and environmental advocacy?
Well, I think I can certainly empathize with getting involved with the environment at a young age. And back in the late 90s and early 2000s, when I was just a kid, it seemed like there was some attention being paid to climate change and environmentalism, but now it seems to have certainly expanded and sort of blown up in a way that I don't think I would have anticipated back when I was just getting into this field. It seems like there's a lot more opportunities available and ways to get involved. So growing up, it was important for me. Like my parents were actually involved in local government and local community engagement and advocacy. So there was always a side of me that wanted to get involved in sort of community service. And a lot of what I did when I was growing up was things like river cleanups, things like litter pickups, like being out in nature and doing something good and positive to make a difference in my own local community. And then growing up and seeing a lot of the natural disasters and the impacts of climate change, when I finally got to a point where I could decide what I wanted to study in school, I went the way of environmental policy and journalism, because I figured there were a lot of stories to be told out there about the environment and climate change, and trying to use my skill set as a communicator to really elevate these issues of environmental concern and make people more aware of the things that are going on with the climate and how they can better become more involved and hopefully make a difference for climate action.
Wow, that's inspiring. And I think all of us young people need to hear that, so me along with all the other Gen Z can get involved as well. Moving on to my next question. So AmeriCorps is known for its service-oriented programs. So how has your experience as a 2-year AmeriCorps alumnus influenced your approach to environmental advocacy and climate communications?
Well, AmeriCorps was really instrumental in helping me identify issues that are at the community level. My first year of AmeriCorps, I knew I wanted to do something out of undergraduate year. Like getting my bachelor's, I knew I wanted to do something related to the environment. And AmeriCorps was right up there. There are so many different opportunities that exist under the umbrella of this national service program that I ended up going into an environmental service corps living in Knoxville, Tennessee for about a year, where I helped on the city of Knoxville solid waste office's recycling program. And that involved going around to a lot of different community events and other engagements talking about why recycling is important and how people can better engage with their own waste management practices and trying to make that better for the city of Knoxville. And that also involved working on a lot of other environmentally related projects around the city and in the region. So lots of other things like I mentioned before, like stream cleanups and river and litter pickups and things like that. Beautification events, ways that local people could also get involved in helping the environment. So it was certainly more so that, like, organizing these different sorts of community projects. And then I did another year so after working in Knoxville for a year in the local government, I worked with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and I learned the impact that nonprofit organizations could have in terms of advocating for specific issues. So I did another year as a volunteer in Service to America. That's another AmeriCorps program where I moved to New York City, and I worked for a youth development organization that taught underserved youth how to play soccer and write poetry. So helping them advance their physical education as well as their literacy skills, and then also make a difference in their own community. But also in that, I learned a lot about how to manage nonprofits, how to raise money for nonprofit organizations, which I then carried over into my future career in terms of grant writing and gaining funding and doing communications and messaging work for nonprofit organizations, which certainly is needed in the climate sphere, as well as this problem continues to grow and persist.
Wow, this has definitely helped you a lot in your career, and we can see it today with all of your accomplishments. Moving on to my next question. So, given your expertise in fundraising and stakeholder engagement, can you talk about some strategies that you use to increase support and building coalitions around climate change initiatives?
Sure. I mean, it's really all about finding common ground. Has been one of my main tenets of community and stakeholder engagement. So having that face-to-face meeting, really getting to know this person or this group, what are their interests, how can you best work together, and then coming up with a plan to identify what areas that you agree on, what areas you disagree on, what are you in competition for, what can you work together on to potentially better a specific initiative or area. So when you're looking at different strategies in terms of how to, like, engage with different people, it's always important to do your research and make sure that you know what they're interested in, and coming up with ideas and strategies in terms of mutually beneficial solutions, making sure that each of you is getting something out of this partnership or coalition or agreement, and working toward a common goal, which in my case, much of the time is advocating for reduced emissions or better energy efficiency or better environmental justice practices.
Right. That's great. That's great. We definitely need more of that. My next question. So, in your role at Climate Group, you probably encounter a lot of different challenges in communicating these climate issues and just communicating with other people in general. So, how do you navigate these challenges and effectively convey the urgency of climate action to different people?
Well, it's all about knowing your audience. My current position primarily deals a lot with different companies and corporations, and is really trying to talk to both businesses and governments at the same time. So keeping it professional, keeping it formal, addressing the economic benefits as well as the human impact of climate change in these sorts of communications is always very important. And also taking a human-centered approach. So putting real people into these real situations and communicating things from their perspective, how the climate crisis impacts them, is always something that I'm trying to do going forward. So finding ambassadors or representatives of the climate crisis and elevating their stories, giving them something to tell. So that could come in the form of someone who's working at a specific company, someone who has been impacted by some sort of specific environmental crisis, or just an everyday layperson. So trying to figure out what their concerns are, how the climate has impacted them. So trying to tell their story and connect it all together and say, like, we're all in this crisis together, and this is why it's important for us to find this common ground and actually come to solutions that benefit everyone in addressing the climate crisis.
Right, that's great. Beyond your professional experiences, what personal experiences and values drive your commitment to sustainability and advocacy?
Well, I mean, it's really all about knowing that this crisis is bigger than ourselves. It's working, like, it's a completely global phenomenon. So working on this issue is something that's what keeps me grounded. It's a way for me, it just in my everyday, like, day-to-day life, it provides me perspective and opportunity. So, like, being able to talk to a lot of people around the world, such as yourself, about this crisis reminds me that we are all connected and in this together. So trying to make sure that I keep that in my mind and drive that forward and really maintain that commitment to making the world a better place is what keeps me going.
That's great, and I really hope more people adopt that sort of mindset. My final question, what advice do you have for younger people like me, or just people in general who want to get involved in um, advocating for climate change?
I would say there are so many different ways to get involved now. Like, I remember growing up, environmental clubs at my high school or my elementary school were absolutely key in terms of, one, understanding and identifying the issues in my local community, and two, making good connections with people in the community as well. So putting yourself out there, making your voice heard, making your voice known. And for me, it's very refreshing to see a lot of what has blossomed with the youth climate movement over the past several years. So joining in with those groups, like the Sunrise movement, is something that I would also recommend. There's so many different resources out there online that you can become connected with and find like-minded individuals such as yourselves that are interested in making a difference in climate and continuing to learn. So I just recently got my master's degree last year, and that for me was something that I've always wanted to achieve, and that degree program really gave me perspective on and insight on so many different global climate and humanitarian issues that I did not have that much previous knowledge about. So continuing on the path of education, always learning and using the resources that are available to you over the internet and at your school or in your community are absolutely key to continuing to address the climate crisis.
That's great, and I could definitely take that advice, and I would give myself that advice for me when I was starting out on this too. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time, and I've learned a lot from this. I'll see you in the next one.